And here we are, AI mistakes. What a great way to kick off the new year. I've been reflecting on where we've been over these last few years with AI, and one thing really has been ringing in my ears. I started the organization AI Mistakes because I wanted to help everyone understand what was important about all of these AI things that are going to be happening around us. And we've made some discoveries over these last couple of years. And as I've been thinking and reflecting on all of the things that have been going on, I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take everything that's been learned and sort of pack it into a nice little actionable session so that you can take everything that's been learned from all of the AI mistakes and do something really useful with it. So that is the question we're answering today. What is the one biggest AI mistake, and how can we help you get to where you need to be with AI in 2025? Now, what's interesting about where we've been with AI so far is that over the last couple of years, it's been pretty unavoidable. Like, there's been headlines, there's been all sorts of activity. And of course, if you have a 401k and you're trying to figure out where to put your money, that too has been something that we've seen pop up, right? If you haven't heard about companies like NVIDIA, maybe you've been living under a rock, because AI is a really important topic. It's something I really enjoy discussing. And so let's just dive into this question. How do we avoid the most costly mistake with AI in 2025? Look, as AI is revolutionizing everything that we touch, there are advancements in many places. It's affecting a lot of industries. Many people are thinking about what it means to their daily life and what it means to what they're doing at work every day and how they're integrating with it. There's more to all of this AI story than simply artificial intelligence. There's data, there's applications, there's conversation and discussion, there's decisions and thought and action. And what can you do about this problem? Well, as I was thinking through all of the things that have been happening over the last couple of years and trying to put my thoughts around what might happen next, a couple of things entered my mind as I was pondering this. The first was, what are the big AI trends right now? What is everybody talking about? What is everyone concerned about? And I think the three biggest trends that are in the zeitgeist right now is what's going to happen with jobs, what's going to happen with investments and the ability to take advantage of all of this technology to do something valuable and interesting and hopefully even good for all of man and society. And one of the areas that came up that I've been spending increasingly more time on is making a prediction, right? What's going to matter? Because everybody wants to know what's going to happen next, right? Now, the truth is, we're all just guessing. And as I was putting pen to paper and thinking through what kind of predictions I was going to be making, I had some thoughts. And as I'm finishing putting those details together, as I publish the newsletter this month, looking forward into 2025 and what I think is going to happen next, there's definitely one area that kept coming up repeatedly that I think we're going to be talking about on a regular basis over the next year. And that is agents. And as I was thinking about this concept of agents, I thought, what if I could have the AI do anything for me, what would it be? Would I have it think for me? Would I have it do work? I mean, honestly, there are lots of things that we do every day that requires mental energy, requires physical energy. If you've got a family, you've got to make sure the kids are taken care of. You got to take care of your home and your finances. You've got to get your real work done. And we also have to remain in touch with each other. I mean, part of the reason why social media has done so well is because we have many connections and people that we keep up with, and we want to remain connected with them. I was thinking about where all of these things have commonality, where they come together. And from an agent perspective, I started to think about what are the things that I have to do every day that are not the things that I really want to do every day. Because I think from an agent standpoint, that's really what they're about. You want someone to get the things done that need to be done. And often when you hire an agent for something, it means that you're paying them to do something that you don't want to do that needs to be done. Well, there's some really interesting thoughts there, and now I'm getting a little deep on you, but specifically about AI, this is relevant because many companies are developing these agents with the idea that you'll trade your money in return for having something get done. Now, when we think about this concept of AI mistakes and the way that we're applying AI to get real work done, there's a couple of trends that are also coming out. We have this tendency to be overly optimistic about what's possible. And that's one of the first places that we fall victim to what AI can do, right? You go to ChatGPT, you've got a question you need to get answered. You type in that detailed question and it spits out an answer. Now, how often are we typing in a question about something that we know nothing about? I would venture a guess that that's really quite frequently. I don't know what your interactions are, but oftentimes when I pull out perplexity.ai to do some research and answer a question, it's something that I literally don't know the answer to. In fact, that is one of the major use cases for me in using a so-called AI agent. That is getting an answer, learning about something that I don't know the answer to. And we have this thing called hallucinations that we have to deal with. It is a situation where the machine is imagining something simply by virtue of the data that's fed to it or the prompt that it's given, trying to answer the question that you have posed to it in a way that will satisfy you and make you happy. And that's where this core central idea of AI mistakes came from. You can't visit any of these search and AI solutions that are generating responses without seeing something like AI makes mistakes, check the answer. But the truth is, you and I are using these tools. Oftentimes we don't know the answer. So how am I going to check the answer if I don't know it? I mean, the whole reason I'm using it is to learn the answer. And then a funny thing happened because there's a lot of science fiction that covers this AI territory. A lot of folks think of HAL from the science fiction story written about Space Odyssey. And we all know how that turned out. The machine did something that prevented the humans from doing the things that they wanted to do. And as I was thinking about this various science fiction movies that sort of typify the AI experience, we've got a couple of really interesting situations coming up. If you are a big fan of watching science fiction films, maybe you've seen the movie Her. Well, believe it or not, that one's actually set in the year 2025. And look, here we are. Now, I wouldn't go so far as to say that the things happening in science fiction are accurate or even a good view of what the future might look like. But I do think it's an interesting thought experiment. And it's illustrated in deep detail so that you and I can evaluate it and really turn that idea into something valuable and think about it for ourselves. But what I saw over the holiday break was a film called War Games. And that was made back in the 80s. And there were a couple of things in that film that really jumped out at me this time. And one of the key things in that story was this idea of giving control over to a machine, letting it take the action, because humans get in the way. And you can look at that in a number of different ways. So let's dive into that a little bit more here. Where should we start with this idea? Well, look, the fact is AI is here and now, and everybody's working on it. If you look at the amount of sheer dollars that are being invested in artificial intelligence right now, it's very clear that many organizations and the people that form them think this is the most important thing of our age. I kind of, you can count me among those. I think what we have in front of us is an incredible opportunity, and it is driving solutions and capabilities that honestly were the work of science fiction only a few years ago. I can honestly tell you that of all of the things that I was reading and thinking and considering about AI, having it create art wasn't on my radar. That wasn't the thing that I thought it is today. I did not expect that to take off. Now, you can argue whether or not art created by generative AI is real creation. I think it is a way for us to see things about ourselves. So I really do believe it is creation. Is it the best kind of creation there is? I don't know that I'd go that far. I like art for art's sake because a human mind thought of it, spent time on it, put it together. You know, so much about our human experience is the fact that a human spent time on it, gave it consideration. Something that was created from a human is a very powerful thing to me. And that is the truth about everything around us. I mean, if you give it some real thought, there's not a thing in this world that we deal with in our modern existence that didn't come from a human mind. In fact, that's what we are very much consumed with. Um, and I think that we've taken that to a very unhealthy place. It's often very important for us to get out in nature and see something that's not made by humans so that we can appreciate the things that are made by humans. So, what do we need to do with all that? Well, you've got this incredible opportunity. We have the power of AI. We have the ability to create entirely new things using the greatest technology that mankind has ever known. And you have to decide what to do with it. That's the reality. So, the question I want to pose to you as we get further into this, what is the one big mistake, is that there is a decision to be made. There is something that needs to happen. And that's what I want to focus on. Where we are right now is a situation that takes us well beyond the F. See, with AI today, particularly with generative AI, it is already doing things that we didn't imagine it could do. So the question is, how do we use that in our daily lives, in our business, in our effort, in our relationships? How do we use it? And then it's not simply a matter of where do we use AI, it's when do we start using it? Because I think it is radically applicable across many places. So it's not so much about where is it going to be relevant. It's going to be relevant everywhere. The real question is, when is it going to be relevant to those spaces? And part of what got me thinking about this was everything that's been coming out with the latest developments in AI models. In the month of December, we saw OpenAI release the details of their O3 model. And one of the interesting things that we discovered was how much of an improvement there was in these AI model capabilities. Now, you can argue about, oh, they had some insights into the benchmarks and they knew what was coming. But the truth is, the benchmarks are getting surpassed again and again. With each subsequent model release, we are seeing better and better scores. In fact, we are getting to the point where these scores are so good, we're not even sure how effective the benchmarks are. Like, these models are coming back with some incredible responses. And part of the fun for me in putting together a presentation like this to talk about where we are with AI and the mistakes that can be made is that I get to use these models in helping me think through what it is that I want to say and how I want to talk about it, put it into a valuable package. So, where am I going with all this? Well, some people are really worried about how good these capabilities are. And they spend a lot of time being concerned about What am I going to do tomorrow? What if it's smarter than I am? I mean, look, you can focus on the things that you're worried about, or you can focus on the things that really matter. And the things that really matter are connected to the possibilities. I spent some time digging through many different models and asking the same question across them. What is that one thing? What do you think about? And what's really surprising is that you don't always get the best answer from the best model. And the fun part is actually considering the answers that they give you back, because while generative AI does give some incredible answers, and there are questions out there that really do have a single answer, one of the interesting things about generative AI is there are almost unlimited answers to questions based on how you pose them. So the one mistake with AI that you need to think about the most in 2025 is how you can use all of these capabilities without losing your human agency. Okay, now we need to go into this a little bit more. I need to explain a little bit about this answer so that you can fully understand what the real mistake is to avoid here. When I talk about losing human agency, there's a couple of things. First, where I started the discussion thinking about 2025 is this concept of an agent. And this concept of an agent is about doing things, is about getting things done. And when we think about the concept of agency, what we're really talking about is how we make decisions, how we get things done around our lives, around our society, around the things that matter. Thinking about things like the future, right? Having that self-thought, having that directed, intentional motion of going through and doing something that you've set your mind on or that you think is really important. And what's interesting is that I got this answer in part from some of the conversations I've had across these AI models. So, what question did I ask? Well, I'll cover that a little bit later. If you're interested in the details, wait till the end of the conversation and I'll show you exactly what I did. But I want to finish this conversation around what it means to have human agency. And I think it really comes down to a couple of things, right? When you look at these charts and you see how incredibly capable these AI systems are, it is a little bit demoralizing. I mean, honestly, how would you feel today if you're in school for multiple years to obtain a PhD? When you look at this chart and you see that O1 is exceeding the capabilities of a domain expert that has spent years to train and learn, explore, and propose detailed thoughts and dissertations and presentations to become a doctor in a given discipline. And somebody else can just sit down in front of a console and type in a question and it spits out an answer that's better than what you just spent 4 years in academia getting an advanced degree to become an expert in. Man, that is rough. I kind of wonder, like, is the PhD enrollment going down right now? Because I don't think I could sign up for that. That's a tough one. And I think this is actually having a real impact. Right? People are seeing these kinds of numbers and going, well, what am I going to do? No point in learning things because I'm going to have AI. And just give up. And that's, I think, the biggest problem that we're going to have in 2025. It's this idea of, well, I don't need to learn that. I'm just going to have an AI. I mean, going back to that conversation I had with my high school algebra 2 teacher, we were talking about using the calculator and knowing how to do things by hand. And was that really worth the time and effort? It's the same question. It's a slightly different domain of experience. In fact, it's not just math anymore. Now it's practically all of the world's known information. I mean, if you can just carry it around in your pocket, should you even bother to learn it anymore? And I think the answer is yes. Now, perhaps not obtaining a PhD degree. I'm not really ready to weigh in on that. I don't have one, so it's probably not really fair for me to weigh in on that. But I do have an advanced degree. I have both an undergraduate and a master's in information technology. I've made a career out of studying exactly these things and trying to help others understand where the value is and why it matters. But the worst thing about losing the agency is giving up, not making decisions, not taking the action that needs to be taken, because you just give up and you think, well, the AI is going to figure it out. I mean, look, when you see these kinds of results and you know it's constantly improving, at what point do you just decide, well, I'm just going to wait for the AI to get better at doing whatever the thing is, and sometime in the future I'll be able to kick back and sit on the couch, watch TV, and let the AI agents do all the work. In fact, that is the utopia that some people are envisioning. I don't think that's utopia. Not taking action. I mean, look, I love to sit on the couch and watch a bit of TV as much as the next guy, but I also don't want to do it all day. Now, everybody's got a different set of preferences, and so maybe you do want to sit at home all day, and that's your goal in life. I wouldn't oppose someone wanting to take some time away and clear their thought, but I actually think that we're here, that we're built for not only taking action, but communicating with other people, having an interaction, having human agency, making decisions, creating, doing work. Because the alternative is really not good. Let's just be honest, right? I mean, not doing things, not caring for yourself and others, that is not the outcome that we want. And increasingly, that is one of the challenges that we have in society. I mean, if you look at where we are, there is an abundance of social media out there that provides absolutely no value or benefit to you at all. And we all get caught in the trap occasionally, just scrolling or watching for too long things that are not enriching who we are and how we think. That is a real problem. And one of the concerns that I have with the availability of all of this AI is that it's more possible to generate content, and content that's not benefiting you, incredibly fast. And you can get stuck. Don't get stuck. Think about what action you're going to take. What is your goal? What are you thinking about for 2025? What's going to make you better? Because that is what human agency is. It's making a decision to take care of you and those that are around you, to do something with intention and purpose to make the world a better place. And that's what makes you you. And the real irony here is that when I talk about the concept of AI mistakes, what started as this idea behind where the AI gets it wrong is still 100% applicable, because that is the crisis. In fact, we've seen it again and again. And this is the thing that I want you to take away as we're closing out the conversation. We have seen studies time and again that talk about the evolution of technology and how it changes the humans in how we interact with the world, how we see the world. And in many ways, these are very positive things that happen. One of the most advanced technologies that we have access to today and really don't give too much thought about is air transportation. And I've come back to this story again and again multiple times because I find it to be so valuable and important. And it is a story about what happened in the aviation industry when we forced pilots to begin using autopilot. You see, when we turned on that autopilot, the pilot in command was actually experiencing a situation where his skills began to fade because he wasn't using them. And I think that is the biggest concern. In fact, we have even seen situations and anecdotes of people that have been interacting with these AI models all day, every day, and they actually have trouble thinking clearly because they're so used to having the aid and assistance of these AI models. They have become so dependent upon the AI doing the thinking for them that it's very difficult to separate them from it. And I think that that is the AI mistake that we must all avoid. No matter how you're using this most advanced technology, Be sure that you're using it to enrich who you are, to answer the questions that you have in ways that are uniquely you. And I want to help you do that. And that's part of the reason I started the channel, because it's not just the mistakes that the AI makes, it's the mistakes that we as humans make in using the AI. And so we're going to continue to grow how we talk about AI mistakes. I'm actually putting together right now an entire ontology of all of the various ways that we can make mistakes in interacting with artificial intelligence, both good and bad. Now, today we covered losing human agency, which is a bad AI mistake. And part of the challenge with making that mistake is if you give the machine the decision, it means it can make the wrong decision and you've decided to do nothing about it. See, that's what happens in the movie War Games. The decision was made at the beginning of the film to give the switch to the missiles to a machine. We gave away the control. And the rest of the movie is about understanding the implications of giving that control away. See, it's a moral story that we ought not forget. It's a great movie, too. I mean, it's old, but I think they really did have exactly the right point in mind. And that was taking the right decisions and thinking things through clearly, but also having a backup plan and a switch that you control, not giving up the agency so that you can make the right call. So with that, that's our one AI mistake, one costly AI mistake to avoid in 2025. And I think this applies in a lot of different ways, whether you own a business, whether you're trying to develop yourself, whether you're trying to help the people around you, help them be invested in themselves. If you own that business, you're the owner. It's yours. You cannot give away the agency of running that business. You're in charge. And that's the most important thing to always keep in mind. If you're hiring other people to help you with that business, absolutely empower them, give them the ability to make those decisions, but never forget that you are the reason the business was created, because it came out of your mind and you have to remain invested in that and use that agency to make good things happen. So now, for those of you that are still around, I promised I would cover exactly what kind of questions I asked and how I did that. So let me just pull up what I have been doing to really dive into this question of mistakes. Now, what's cool about this discussion as I'm wrapping up our time together today is the real diversity in answers that are available today with the most advanced AI capabilities that are out there. Now, I haven't tried every model. There are now literally thousands of models that are available, and I have my own favorites. But let's just cover a few of them because I think the results were absolutely fascinating. Now, I have continued to keep my ChatGPT subscription. And a part of keeping that ChatGPT subscription means that I get access to the most advanced model at the lower tier, which is O1. So I don't have access to O3, and I don't have access to the more advanced level of O1. But I do have the O1 capability that was the most powerful capability just before December when they released the new subscription option that's $200 a month. I don't think that's for me. I think I can get a lot of utility out of this. O1 is kind of fun to use, but you have to really think through how you're going to put it together. It's not so much about prompt engineering. It's about what question do I want to ask? So I spent some time. I sat down and I thought about what is the real question here? How am I going to get to the one thing in 2025 that matters the most? And as I was reflecting on all of the things that have been happening, right, we're in a rapidly evolving AI universe. Things are constantly progressing. So here it is, based on everything you know, how rapidly AI capabilities are progressing. What is the one thing, the one mistake that people must absolutely avoid in how they think and act in relation to artificial intelligence in the immediate future? Now, some of the models have training data that's not 100% up to date. O1 is one of those models. If I asked it what the date was, I don't know what the answer would be, but it wouldn't be January 3rd, 2025. And so simply saying immediate future was the way that I got around that entanglement. Now, O1 has the ability to do deep thinking and break a question down in more detail, but it only took 7 seconds to come back with this answer. So we're not talking about an incredibly complex task here. It came back with an answer pretty quickly. Now, this is definitely an area of mistakes with AI. That is the complacency around whether or not the AI is just going to work, whether it's going to get better, how much we need to be overlooking it. And as we look at 2025 with the advent of agents, I think this is relevant because we are absolutely in a time and place where we can give over the decisions and thoughts to AI agents and let it decide. Give it away. I don't want to deal with that anymore. We're going to need some oversight. And I definitely believe we're going to see a lack of oversight. We're going to see some organizations that are giving away the keys, letting the AI get access to everything and just seeing what it can do because they can. And I do think that there are valuable experiments that must be undertaken. But I also think that it should be done with some level of responsibility. Governance is something that is increasingly being talked about. How do we make sure that the stuff's doing what it's supposed to do? So, really relevant answer. So then I thought, well, I wonder what kind of different answer I might get from O1 Mini. So I asked the very same question yet again. So I basically took this prompt and I dropped it across multiple different solutions just to see what it would come back with an answer. Now, it said a similar thing, but in a different positioning. It thought about it for only a couple of seconds, and it framed it from the concept of ethical considerations and responsible oversight, which is really a different way of saying the same kind of thing. And then it enumerated some of the reasons why this matters and how to avoid the mistake. I didn't need that so much because this is something that I've been thinking on for quite some time. In fact, I have built exactly frameworks to avoid these kinds of problems and to ensure that we're leveraging AI and making mistakes in the right way to grow our capabilities rather than simply giving someone else control. So then I thought, well, GPT-4o is a pretty good model. It is a bit older, but I wonder what it would say. Now, what I like about this answer is this is fundamental to one of the underlying premises that I talk about in AI mistakes, and that is fundamentally underestimating how good this AI capability can get. But the way that it couched this was that it's possible for us to underestimate how good it can get and not acting with the right level of foresight, not thinking about where it's going and what it's capable of doing, and taking actions to avoid that from getting out of control. This feels a little bit like the folks that are overly concerned about how capable the AI is becoming. And oh boy, what are we going to do when we get to super intelligence? It's going to really take over where we are and what's possible. I don't know. Is that a concern? I'm not so worried about that one. What I am more concerned about, though, is you not taking advantage of this technology and not learning and growing yourself. So what did Claude have to say? Well, I'm going to have to zoom in on this a little bit because it's a little bit small for the screen. Same question. What was interesting here is this one, too, seemed to take that oversight and doomer philosophy into where things are. Basically, it says making sure that we don't give up this thing about safety or fully autonomous agents with human consciousness and agency. Now, this is part of what sort of led me toward this answer of agency and that we could lose human agency, but it's sort of a horse of a different color if you think about it. This view of the world is essentially saying that we are attributing to agents a human-like consciousness. We're thinking about the way that they operate in the world in the same way that a human might. Perhaps we're attributing them more responsibility or value than is really necessary. And then it went on to explain something that I think we're going to be talking about more on the AI mistakes in 2027, and that is we anthropomorphize AI far too much. In fact, if you go all the way back to Eliza, one of the very earliest videos that I did for the channel quite a long time ago, I talked about this system called Eliza that was built back in the 60s. And the most amazing thing happened with Eliza. You see, when people saw Eliza asking questions about their condition, they swore it was a human. They swore the thing was alive. It wasn't. It was actually just a very intelligently scripted set of questions that was very convincing to the human that was interacting with the machine. And I think that we are in that position now as well. If it looks like it's smart and it seems to know the answers better than we do, then it must be like a human. And that's simply not the case. And I think that is a challenge that we must contend with. So this was a very different consideration. I understand the danger overtones in this, but that's also one of the things that we should expect to get from some of the larger providers that are heavily invested in ensuring the problem of alignment is solved by navigating what the model is built. And I do think it is valuable for us to consider the alignment question and ensure that we're not building systems that are overly dismissive of the value of human beings. So there's something to be said for that. But what I was honestly most surprised about was the answer that I got from Meta. When I pulled up Meta AI and I asked this question, I really liked this answer. The biggest mistake is underestimating the impact of AI on human agency. And this is really the underlying premise that I used for the conversation today. I colored it a little bit differently, but I think this is a valid concern, right? If we see that the AI is really good, perhaps we'll decide not to do things or not to do things in the same way. And then, of course, the most interesting answer for me today was the answer I got from Gemini. Gemini has been consistently upgraded. Google's made some really great strides over the last couple of months. They have enabled in the subscription that I have for Gemini, this 1.5 Pro with deep research. And so you give it a question and it comes back and it actually says, hey, based on your question, I'm going to go do some research. And this is the research I'm going to go do. And then I'll come back and give you the answers and write it up in a nice report. So it gave a really lengthy response here to my question, far more of an answer than I really wanted, but it did use a lot of really rich resources to come up with this. Consider the source of the information and where it's coming from. That's an important element, but we got a lot of educational folks. We got some science resources here. We got a YouTube video. We've got UNESCO. We've got AI.gov. Man, there's a lot of sources here that they use to really pull this together. And I think that this was too big an answer for me to really use. It didn't give me one answer. And so ultimately, I had to kind of throw it out. But it was really interesting. The only way that it really answered the question was in the first paragraph, and then it went on to elaborate to such a degree that it was very difficult to determine one critical mistake. But we also have to understand that this is the challenge, right? When it's generating responses, it's using all sorts of context that we may or may not have been given it. In a conversation I was able to participate in earlier today, talked about the idea that oftentimes the responses from these models are colored by the auxiliary information that's provided them. We're increasingly adding more and more context. If you enter something into ChatGPT, it has the ability to save that memory. And that memory could affect subsequent conversations. That means the model is learning about you as you are interacting with it, and it's using that information to drive the response. In fact, the answers that you saw me get out of ChatGPT could be colored by the fact that I'm doing a lot of exploration around making AI mistakes. It didn't use specifically the mistakes language as I was going through these, but you have to be aware of what's happening underneath the covers as we're doing these explorations. Ultimately, it's up to us to own the machines, to make the decisions to drive the AI. So don't make that mistake. Instead, let's focus on the growth mistakes. Let's find the mistakes that are going to make us better. They're going to help us learn and be better humans. I think that's really ultimately what it's about. And I've got some great content that's going to come out here very shortly to help with exactly that. I'm going to kick out another edition of the newsletter, kicking off 2025. So if you have not signed up to get the newsletter, be sure to go and do that, because it's going to be coming out within the next few days, and I don't want you to miss it. Beyond that, there's lots of opportunities to learn. We'll be putting some more community events on the calendar and kicking off another cohort of the online course later this year. Go sign up, get on the watch list for that. Maybe doing more than one iteration, perhaps a couple of different incantations of the course in various sizes and lengths, so you have some more choices about how to sign up and leverage that. And of course, I'm also going to be doing some work with the YouTube channel, growing the content. Maybe a surprise or two in 2025 if you're looking for opportunities to work together and collaborate. Would love to hear from you. If you're enjoying the program and there's a question you have, send it my way. Perhaps it'll be an interesting conversation. And until next time, go make some mistakes. Happy New Year.